The 2021 MLB season is here, and although the seats may not be full, your bankroll has the chance to be. Greg Hoops Peterson has you covered for every game, every day this season, along with comprehensive analysis and angles for getting to the window while celebrating the walk-off winners and blown saves of what will be a wild season. Now it is time for the Baseball Betting Podcast with Greg Peterson.
A warmer friendly hello, welcome to lovely Las Vegas, the Baseball Betting Podcast. Myself, Greg Peterson. Got a great show for you in the second segment. One of our favorites, Sharky Waters Nation, is going to be joining me. He does an absolutely tremendous job handicapping a little bit of everything, and we're going to be taking a look at these divisional series in the second segment. Now, we're going to be leaving out a little bit when it comes to the Giants versus Dodgers, just because at the time of recording that interview, we had no idea who's going to be winning that Dodgers versus Cardinals game, so that one got bypassed a little bit more, but we're going to be taking a look at the other three series. We're going to be taking a look at the game ones as well, and then in the final segment, going to give you guys picks and analysis and a little something I like to call touch 'em all on both of the American League Divisional Series games that we have for today. And first things first, always gotta dive into the Twitter mailbag whenever you guys have questions. You got one of two ways to be able to fire these in. First one is my Twitter timeline at @GUnit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, whether it be just a general question, a topic, segment idea, what have you. Did not wind up getting in any today, but let me tell you, if you wound up taking Cardinals with a 1.5 on the run line, I do feel for you as we recap what we wound up seeing in the National League wildcard game yesterday here in the first segment.
What happened yesterday? Let's go around the bases and find out.
3-1 is the final in a 9-inning game that wound up lasting about 4 hours and 15 minutes, and I wound up posting this out on social media, and I'll share it with you here. If you wound up taking the Cardinals on the run line, it was as if you were wined and dined. You were given 4+ hours of luxury, and then at the end of it, you were slapped in the face and pretty much told to pay the hefty check. So that was not great, as the St. Louis Cardinals go 0 of 11 with runners in scoring position, stranding 11 men on base. Wainwright actually wound up giving a little bit of a better start here than Max Scherzer. Adam Wainwright winds up going 5 1/3 innings, giving up 1 run. That 1 run was a solo home run to Justin Turner, down for what? And for the Cardinals, the lone game that they wound up scratching across wound up coming in the first inning off of a wild pitch by Mr. Mad Max Scherzer, as Scherzer only winds up going 4 1/3 innings in this one, giving up 1 run. I was highly critical of the fact that the bullpen arm of Joe Kelly was utilized after that by Dave Roberts and in the situation that it was, but turned out to be the correct one, as the bullpen for the Dodgers, as you wound up having Joe Kelly come in for 2/3 of an inning, Pursuiter Gradwell an inning, Corey Knebel gave you an up, like trying 5 outs, and Kenley Jansen a full inning. They all wind up coming in doing their jobs, no runs allowed, and then it was Alex Reyes who wound up giving up the home run that was a walk-off to Chris Taylor. He did not wind up recording a single out. One of those runs was credited to him. The other run was on TJ McFarland, who wound up going 2/3 of an inning in this one, as you wound up getting 5 outs of the bullpen out of Luis Garcia, and Giovanni Gallegos also gave you a scoreless inning as well. So you wound up seeing a very fast-inning one, and now you've got a 106-win LA Dodgers team facing off against a 107-win San Francisco Giants team in a season series that wound up being 11-10. So that is going to be a lot of fun. And what else is a lot of fun? Getting Sharky Waters Nation on this podcast. The recap of what we wound up seeing yesterday is just an appetizer, as now we've got the main entree. We've got the 4 divisional series set. We've got divisional series baseball starting up today, so we're going to be chatting about that and so much more with our good friend Sharky Waters Nation, terrific handicapper on the other side right here on the Baseball Betting Podcast with myself, Greg Peterson.
Greg is calling in a pinch hitter from the Overtime Network hotline.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Podcast. Myself, Greg Peterson. Always great to be joined by this guest, as Sharky Waters Nation has delivered great content all year long, and it is always a pleasure to get him on the podcast. He does a wide variety of different things, handicaps, little NBA, which we know is coming back into our lives before we know it. I know that he's done some work with some of the podcasts that some of our friends like the great Fushini, along with the Odds Fellow, have done as well. A man that does a terrific job when it comes to being able to gauge the NFL, and day in and day out has been doing a great job on the baseball betting board. As we do have Sharky Waters Nation joining me on the podcast, who you're able to find on Twitter at Sharks, the letter N Sports, and Sharky Waters Nation. Great to have you aboard. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Greg. I always say suddenly not so casual, because when we get into this sphere, I get hyped. It's baseball playoffs. It's football season. As you said, basketball comes back October 19th. And we get to sit here and chat for a fast 15 minutes. I love to do it. We got 4 series, one up in the air, obviously, about to drop the first pitch. We have 3 official series on record. We have series prices. We have game 1 prices. We have all sorts of matchups, and we're excited to discuss it. So lead the way. Where should we begin here?
Absolutely. Like you said, we do not know the winner of the Dodgers versus St. Louis Cardinals game at the time of recording this, but we do know that we're going to have a series between the Houston Astros and the Chicago White Sox, as the White Sox were determining whether to go with Lance Lynn or Lucas Giolito in Game 1. It will be Lance Lynn on the bump, and as of right now, we're seeing the Astros right around about a minus 140 on this game. I'm seeing a straight minus 138. I'm seeing a straight minus 145, but this thing seems to be settling in at minus 140. And if you look at the series price, you're getting the Astros anywhere between minus 125 and minus 135. And not sure about you, but I almost think that this would be about as big of an upset as if the Red Sox were to take down the Rays, just because I take a look at the White Sox coming into this series in general, and I don't like their recent form. They struggled against teams with a winning record. And you take a look at Lance Lynn, you can tell that he wasn't himself after the All-Star break.
Yeah, I agree with part of it, and I disagree with part of it, but the best part about this is conversation always wins. I'm actually looking at the White Sox as a pretty live dog here for this series price. Let's go to Game 1 first, though. As you mentioned, Lance Lynn was very good for a large portion of the season. That does not connect with his last 10 starts. He's been very below average per the standards he set the last 4 or 5 years, obviously in his mid-30s at this point. Lance McCullers Jr., I like this on a buy portion at home. 2 starts mid-season, actually, against the White Sox, both highly impressive. 1 at home and 1 on the road, both very, very good efforts. Lynn did get shelled. His worst start of the season, I believe, was in Houston going back a couple months ago. I think that continues in Game 1. I think the Astros do clean house in Week 1. But let me continue the other side of this. I think this reverses in Game 2. I think Lucas Giolito comes in here and tosses a very good game. And then I look at the backside of the Houston rotation. We've discussed this numerous times on the podcast over the course of the last few months. A lot of their younger pitchers are much worse on the road and very inconsistent, I think, emotionally to a degree. And I think when you get out there to the south side of Chicago here, this is going to be a raucous event for these pitchers. Obviously, Dallas Keuchel, pedestrian on the road, slightly better at home, and Dylan Cease, perpetually pedestrian, situationally solid. I'm looking at the number, however. One of the things that I really looked at here is the White Sox to win the series 3-1 is only plus 375 on a probability figure. And the Astros to win 3-2 is plus 350. So if you really look at that, they're telling you that there's just about the exact same probability the White Sox win this series at home in 4 than there is for the Astros to win at home in 5. And I think most people would think the Astros should win this series and probably in 5. But again, I ask you the question, are these pitchers going to travel well in hostile environments, potentially inclement weather outdoors in Chicago in October? I do like some implied odd value at the White Sox at a plus 105, plus 110. Greg?
And you bring up something very interesting, as we do have Sharky Waters Nation joining me on the podcast, and that's the fact that you've got one particular starter for the Houston Astros that I take a look at that has been significantly better at home than on the road, and that's Luis Garcia. I almost feel like he should have started Game 2 instead of Framber Valdez. Valdez is a guy that has been very good at home. He's been very good on the road. He really doesn't have those home and road splits. Meanwhile, with Garcia, you certainly do have that, but you also bring up Dallas Keuchel. If he winds up getting a start, well, I think that it's curtains for this Chicago White Sox team, because it doesn't matter if he's pitching at home, if he's playing on the road, if he's pitching in some foreign land. He just has not been good in general, so it's been a little bit tough. But I do take a look at this White Sox bunch, and what I think is going to be interesting is what we wind up getting out of the bullpen, because both of these teams after the All-Star break, they were right around 14th and 15th in the big leagues with regards to ERA, both of their bullpens. after the All-Star break, between a 4.02 and a 4.03 with regards to ERA, so relative stalemate there.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. And forwarding that point to the totals, I was just talking to the aforementioned Great Fusini about this. I do think we're going to see more runs in Chicago in games 3 and 4. Game 1, again, I think Lance McCullers will pitch very well here. Lance Lynn's a little more up in the air, but I do think in Houston we're going to see lower totals. And of course, as you just suggested, pedestrian bullpens. Once these starters are outside of the game, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th innings, this is open season for a lot of runs and a lot of variance. And I think from the entertainment point, we always talk about this. Capping a sport and watching a sport for entertainment are two polar opposite environments. When you cap it, you want a blowout winner on your side. As a fan, you want it to go back and forth. I think you're going to see a lot of runs and a lot of back and forth, particularly in games 3, 4, and 5 here.
I'm right there with you. I certainly did not wind up making my New York Post play today the under in game 1 of the White Sox versus the Astros. You'll need to stick around in the final segment for that, but I do think that we are going to see if there is going to be a lot of runs in any of these series. Most of them come in the White Sox versus the Astros series, as we do have Sharky Waters Nation joining me on the podcast. And as we're doing this, we have really no idea what the Boston Red Sox are going to be doing against the Tampa Bay Rays. I did wind up saying it before we wound up seeing the wildcard game between the Red Sox and the Yankees. Whoever won that game, I felt like was just going to be pretty much taken out by the Tampa Bay Rays in either 3 or 4 games. I don't see anything to make me think otherwise. I'm not sure what your outlook is for Boston on the series because, like I said, we've got up in the air starting pitchers, but the Rays have owned the Red Sox, winning 11 out of the last 15 games in this season series. And I take a look at the Rays in general. I think that they are the best team in the American League.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree. Obviously, the first time in franchise history, the Rays with 100-plus wins on the campaign this year. Highly impressive stuff, particularly with a lot of movement in their rotation. Obviously, Tyler Glasnow getting hurt after 14 starts. Not what you want to see, but some of these guys have showed up, and they have showed up consistently. And number one would be on the game 1 list, Shane McLaughlin here. Very, very solid. Obviously, coming over in a trade last year, I believe 2020 was his intro point. Don't check me on that. I'm not a beat writer for the Rays. But that being said, I think they're going to be outclassing the Red Sox on all points here. Eduardo Rodriguez on the bump in game 1. Very, very inconsistent and unpredictable. We always go through home and away starts. This guy is confounding and confusing. Sometimes he's good on the road. Sometimes he's good at home. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I don't really know what we're going to get out of Eduardo tomorrow. Shane McLaughlin had one isolated blow-up start against the Red Sox at home. His first start of the year against the Red Sox, he had a great start at home. Then he came back and got shelled. Then he pitched well in Fenway. I expect a good start from him. And, of course, the money line number does suggest that. Minus 180 on the money line is a large figure. And I think it connects with what you said. 11-4 last 15, plus 206 run differential versus plus 80. Red Sox, a lot of moving parts. They were hot early season. They did cliff dive and then kind of got it together down the stretch. But I think the Rays will win this series in at least 4 and maybe 5, but regardless, I think they take this one.
Yep, and to your point, it is going to be Mr. Eduardo Rodriguez who winds up taking the mound in game 1, and it's been very much a mixed bag for him against the Tampa Bay Rays because you just take a look at it, he's given up 5 runs or more in 2 out of his last 4 starts, but in his second to last start, his last start on the road against the Rays, 6 scoreless innings, and then he returns home and he winds up giving up 6 runs in 3 2/3 innings. So Eduardo Rodriguez, one of the more unpredictable guys that we're going to be seeing all postseason long. And I think that if there is a series that might be a tad unpredictable, it is going to be this Atlanta Braves versus Milwaukee Brewers series, because with the Brewers, you now have the question mark of the bullpen. You figured that you knew that you'd have Devin Williams and Josh Hader in the back half. Well, Devin Williams decided to punch a wall after his team wound up clinching the National League Central after having a couple of beverages. I do enjoy beverages. I don't enjoy too many beverages, and he had too many of them, and that was not good. So now the Brewers are going to be without him. Jay Cousins is someone that's been dealing with injury. You've got Brad Boxberger the last 3 days has had right around a 9 ERA. I'm not sure about you, but I've got my questions with Brandon Woodruff and Freddie Peralta after their last few starts. Meanwhile, this is an Atlanta Braves team that they've gotten a little bit hot, but I think the lone problem that they're going to be facing is the fact that in game 1, you've got Corbin Burns going for the Brewers. The only start that the Brewers lost when Corbin Burns was on the mound after the All-Star break was his final start against the LA Dodgers, in which he was just clearly out there to mainly get a little bit of work. So I take a look at this spot, and I do think that the Atlanta Braves have a little bit of value game-by-game betting. I don't necessarily see it in Game 1 just because I am very bullish on Burns.
Yeah, I agree with you pretty much on all points there. I think this could be a Braves steal spot in this series. Obviously, as you mentioned, the bullpen has issues for the Brewers. Brewers have been smoking hot all year, and their staff is absolutely stacked. But when I really go through the dynamics for this staff, Corbin Burns has one start against Atlanta this year. It was in Atlanta. It was also one of his worst starts of the year. He gave up 4 runs in the first inning and was pulled after 4 innings. The Brewers did show up with the bats that day against Touki Toussaint, a 9-5 victory. On the other side of this, Charlie Morton has one outing against the Brewers this year. He pitched well, but lost 2-1. So I always talk about dispersion. Burns got not an actual win on his record, but a team victory in a poor outing. And Charlie, in a good outing, got a team loss. The number coming in here, I think a lot of sharp action actually buying into Charlie Morton. It seems to be getting steamed. I'm really not a huge fan of the Brewers here. I might be looking at Charlie Morton at plus 127. Take it to Game 2. Max Fried has been a legendary on the road in his last 10 starts. He has aced teams of high quality in the West, Dodgers and Giants, and Padres, of course, totally different conversation. But he has been very, very good. And I look at Brandon Woodruff, obviously publicly renowned as a great pitcher. He is. But his home starts outside of the division specifically have been slightly more pedestrian. I really don't love the Brewers in Game 2 either. And again, a 5-game series, we've seen this, and we've seen this historically, and we could see it this year. There's going to be a lot of variance in these series. I could see the Braves coming in here and stealing at least 1 of 2 on the road, and then I could see the Brewers going into Atlanta, getting the backside of this rotation and stealing some games in Atlanta. Overall, to predict this series, I think it's tough. 3-3 in the regular season. These teams are very evenly matched, but I do think there's value in games 1 and 2 for Atlanta on the road here.
I certainly see it in Game 2 with Max Fried. He's given up 3 runs or fewer in each out of his last 11 starts. With regards to earned runs, he gave up a few unearned runs, so that skewed that a little bit. But .54 ERA in the month of September, and I mentioned it. Brandon Woodruff, someone who just did not wind up looking very good in his last few starts of the season in the month of September, north of a 4 ERA, by far his worst ERA of any month out of the year. Opponents were at 262 off of him. Overall for the year, that's more like a 200. So I am with you on Game 2. I'm going to have a little bit of a tougher time going up against Corbin Burns in Game 1 just because I think that if you go 7 strong, you're able to put a lot of those bullpen issues to rest with the Brewers. Although I will say to your point as well, Charlie Morton, a guy who's actually done his best work on the road as well. So that total of 7 is going to be looming very, very large. And what always looms very, very large is the great handicapping of you, Sharky Waters Nation. You do a great job when it comes to the MLB. I know you do a tremendous job when it comes to the NBA. That is going to be back before we know it. I know you do a wide variety of different shows. I know that you're going to be doing one for the NBA as well. So tell the good folks about that and just what you've all got going on social media and other platforms.
Absolutely, Greg. Another opportunity to dominate. A pleasure working with you as always. And talking about the postseason, I mean, we started doing this back in June. Postseason baseball is just a treat to watch. I can't wait to watch it tonight. I do all sorts of content because I love sports. I love to prognosticate. I love to make money. I love to entertain. Friday nights, Sharks and Sports on Twitter. The Shark and the Gun, college football, 20 minutes of our top plays, the fastest paced content you will find on the internet, and I hold to that. Greg Peterson might question me on that because his pace is unbelievable as well, and I love doing it. But NBA will start October 19th. J Money is Money, my partner, daily shows, daily picks, and of course, Sunday at 10:45 a.m., we are hosting every week the top plays from the Dad Bods GPO Lock Capper Collective NFL leaderboard competition. I am the Shark. It is your host of the show with J Money and the Gun. And of course, Greg Peterson, thanks for hosting me as always. MLB Chats, playoff baseball. Let's enjoy this beautiful evening.
Yes, let us enjoy this beautiful evening. We've got postseason baseball in our lives. It is very spectacular. We've got bets. I'm sure that you, much like myself, are going to be putting down a few cold ones these next few weeks, enjoying all these baseball games, which makes it all the better. And what makes this podcast all the better is having great guests on there, and Sharky Waters Nation always delivers. So big thanks to Sharky Waters Nation for joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Podcast. And coming up next, the ALDS series. Both of them begin, so I'm going to give you guys a sign total on both games in the ALDS for this Thursday, and a little something you like to call Touch 'em All.
Welcome back to the Baseball Betting Podcast with Greg Peterson as we're off to a quality start, and now it's time to walk it off in a grand fashion.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Podcast. Myself, Greg Peterson. Great to have Sharky Waters Nation on the podcast. He does an absolutely terrific job taking a look at a wide variety of different things and always brings it whenever he's on this podcast. So big thanks to him. Now it is that time of the podcast to give you a signed total for both American League Divisional Series games that we've got on the betting board today, and a little something I like to call Touch 'em all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch 'em all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter feed at JR_D1. We're going to be going in rotation order, which is, well, time order. They make this one very, very easy on us with that regard, so we're going to have some fun with it. Just going to hit on the 2 divisional series games today, and then the games for Friday I'll obviously just do on the podcast tomorrow, so we're going to be leaving them as standalones for the time being. So we're going to go 9-11, 9-12 to start out with Chicago White Sox. Hit the road to face off against the Houston Astros. My New York Post play of the day is going to be tied to this one as Lance McCullers Jr. is going to be going for the Astros. Lance Lynn is going to be on the bump for the White Sox as the Battle of Lances sees McCullers Jr.'s team as a favorite, anywhere between -127 and -135. Meanwhile, if you're taking a look at the Southsiders, anywhere between +110 and +125. 7.5 to 8 is your total. On the 7.5, over is -120 and the under is even. On the 8, over is even and the under is -120. I don't care if you've got 7.5 or 8. I'm going to be taking a look at the over, and that is the New York Post play of the day. We were talking about with Sharky Waters Nation, and I do think that this is going to be potentially the highest scoring series that we wind up seeing, and you take a look at it, and Lance McCullers Jr. has a ERA that is actually worse at home this year compared to on the road. 3.51 home ERA, 2.70 road ERA. He's also wound up giving up 9 home runs at home so far this year compared to 4 on the road. Now, he did wind up pitching more innings at home than he did on the road, but still, his home runs per 9 rate right around double what it is on the road as compared to at home. So that is something to take a look at. And with McCullers Jr., this is also a guy that wound up averaging right around about 4.4-ish walks per 9 innings, has 76 walks overall, wound up leading the American League. So that is a little bit of an issue that you have. And then you take a look at Lance Lynn, and we were talking about Sharky Waters Nation. He wound up getting off to a really nice start this year, and in his last start against the Detroit Tigers, looked relatively solid, giving up 1 run over the course of 5 innings, but he just hasn't been the same guy recently. He has given up 4+ runs in now 3 out of his last 8 starts, so he has been getting touched up quite a bit, and the big thing is he has now given up 8 home runs in his last 9 starts as well, so he is allowing the deep ball a little bit more. That is something of concern, and you take a look at Lance Lynn at home versus on the road. On the road, right around 2.90 ERA, 2.56 home ERA, and this is a man that when he's been on the road, command has been a little bit of an issue, right around 3 walks per 9 innings, so that is something to take a look at. Both of these bullpens relatively similar with regards to ERA since the All-Star break. The Houston Astros right around a 4.02 with their bullpen ERA, and the Chicago White Sox right in that realm as well. These teams were 14th and 15th respectively, and you take a look at the Astros, you have been able to get quite a bit of something out of Kendall Graveman, but Yimi Garcia and Phil Maton have not necessarily been great additions for the team. Christian Javier has been able to give the team quite a bit of something as a little bit of a super reliever, but you take a look at what he wound up doing in the month of September/October, right around a 7-ish ERA, so that is a little bit of an issue. Then you take a look at the White Sox, and guys like Aaron Bummer have been able to rate it in a little bit more, but Ryan Tepera has been a little bit shaky for this bunch. Craig Kimbrell is someone that wound up having to reacclimate to that 8th inning role. You take a look at him over the last 3 days, right around a 3.4-ish ERA, so not as dominant as when he was with the Cubs. And you've got a White Sox team that they're 3rd in the league when it comes to on-base percentage. You've got Tim Anderson along with Luis Robert, pair of guys hitting above a 300 for Robert, hitting more like a 340. You've been able to get quite a bit of something out of Yasmani Grandal ever since coming off the injured list. He's been hitting right around 335 with a home run every 9 to 10 at-bats. Adam Engels hitting right around 250 for this bunch. Lurie Garcia has been able to hit more like a 265 along with Yoel Moncada, along with Jose Abreu. Abreu wound up being in the top 5 in the league when it comes to RBI, but then you just take a look at the firepower that you've got with the Houston Astros. How about all 4 of these guys and what they've been able to deliver? And Jose Altuve, Carlos Correa, Kyle Tucker, Yordan Alvarez, all at least 26 home runs so far this year. All these guys hitting at least a 277. All these guys at least a 346 on base. It is absolutely incredible. Yoli Gurriel, someone that's hitting right around a 319. Michael Brantley's back to the fold. He's hitting a 310. When you've needed guys like like Elemendy Diaz, Jake Myers, list goes on and on. These guys have all been able to deliver for you as well. So I do think that there's a whole lot of upside when it comes to this entire lineup in general. Jose Siri even has been able to give you some good at-bats. So I do take a look at this spot. I do think that the Astros have a nice edge. I think that McCullers is going to be able to outduel Lance Lynn in this spot. And you just take a look at Lance Lynn in general. He's had his big-time struggles with the Houston Astros. Wound up setting the solid at 8.7. So I'm going to be taking a look at the over in this spot. I want to making the Astros more roundabout a minus 150-ish favorite. So going Astros and going over, and the New York Post play of the day is the over. And we go 9-13, 9-14 for the other game. The Tampa Bay Rays are going to be playing host to the Boston Red Sox. Eduardo Rodriguez is going to be going for the Sox, and Shane McClanahan is going to be going for the Rays. The Rays are between minus 158 and minus 162 favorites. Meanwhile, with the Red Sox, anywhere between plus 140 and plus 150 is your price. It is your total. Under is anywhere between minus 110 and minus 120. Over is between even and minus 110. And I wound up setting the Rays as more around minus 175 favorites. I really do like the way that Shane McClanahan has been able to pitch both at home and on the road, though he actually has a little bit of a worse ERA when he is at home than on the road. 3.50 home ERA, 3.36 road ERA, giving up 8 home runs in 64 and a third innings at home. Meanwhile, 6 bombs in 59 innings on the road. So that is a little bit of something, but at the same time, his strikeouts per 9 rate whenever he's at home, it is north of 11. And then you take a look at Eduardo Rodriguez. I was mentioning it with Sharky Waters Nation. This guy is just all over the place. He has been someone that has been a little bit better on the road than he has been at home. 3.95 road ERA compared to a 5.95 home ERA. He has given up 11 home runs in 95 and 2/3 innings on the road with a 273 opponent's batting average. And you take a look at him against the Tampa Bay Rays. He's had a couple starts in which he's gotten blown up. He's had a couple okay starts. Overall, a 4.71 ERA across his 4 starts against the Tampa Bay Rays. But I also take a look at this Red Sox bullpen. Ever since the beginning of the month of August, bottom 10 bullpen ERA in the big leagues. Now you've been using Tanner Houck out of the bullpen. Garrett Richards has been able to give you a little bit of something as well. And Enzo Robles over the last 30 days has not given up a run, but I do have my question marks with Matt Barnes. Ryan Brazier was able to be solid for the team a few days ago against the Yankees, and by and large has been good, but with the Rays, you've just got this team stockpiled with guys that are able to deliver for you. JT Chargois, since coming over from the Seattle Mariners, a $1.90 ERA for this team. You've been able to get good innings out of Pete Fairbanks along JP Fireeisen. Andrew Kittredge, a sub-2 ERA overall for the year. Matt Weisler is someone that wound up spending a lot of time on the injured list, but all in all, while he was with the Tampa Bay Rays, because he actually wound up beginning of the year with the San Francisco Giants, a 2.15 ERA, so he has been able to deliver in big spots. And then you just take a look at this Tampa Bay Rays team, second in the league when it comes to runs per game, aside from the Houston Astros. You've got a quadrant of guys who would be able to give you at least 27 home runs. Austin Meadows, Nelson Cruz, Brandon Lau, Mike Zunino. And with Zunino, Nelson Cruz, Brandon Lau, all at least 32 home runs. And with Lau, 340 on base. And you just take a look at what this guy has been able to do over the last 30 days. He's got a 350 batting average with 8 home runs. He has been absolutely magnificent for this team. You have Wander Franco, who's back off the injured list. He wound up having north of a 40-game on-base streak. He's able to do a lot of that. And you've got a team in general that has a bunch of guys that they don't necessarily hit for the world's greatest average, but they just find a way on. You've got someone like a G-Man Choi, who wound up hitting a 230 during the regular season, but a 350 on base. You've also got a 350 on base with Yandy Diaz, who's got right around 255 batting average. So you've got a lot of those guys that are able to do a nice job with that. And then with the Boston Red Sox, we saw it on display when it came to that wild card game. They do a good job of just being able to reach base. They do a good job when it comes to being able to supply the boom. In general, you've got a pair of guys in Kyle Schwarber along with Hunter Renfroe that both wound up having 30-plus home runs during the regular season. Both of these guys were able to hit right around about a 260-ish overall for the year. Rafael Devers, 38 bombs, 280 batting average. Biggest question at this point is JD Martinez. According to all the beat writers with the Boston Red Sox, he was moving around a little bit. I would suspect that he probably doesn't wind up starting in this game, but if they need him for a pinch hitting role, he'll probably be in there. And even if he does wind up playing, I think that he will be far from 100% in this game. So that's sort of what we're making with regards to the determination there. And it wound up playing like 2 or 3 cents in the line, but it's nothing in which I would necessarily shade it too much / too little if he winds up playing in this game or not. The bigger thing is Xander Bogaerts, a guy that this year was able to hit right around 23 home runs, had a home run in that wild card game against the Yankees. He was able to hit a 295. He's been very solid for this team. Alex Verdugo all year long has been able to hit right around a 290 as well. So you do have some boppers in this lineup, and I take a look at this spot. I do think that you're going to get a little bit of higher scoring game, but we know this. The Tampa Bay Rays have just completely owned the Boston Red Sox. I think that this is going to be one of those big Eduardo Rodriguez as blow-up starts, and if you're looking at the run line of the Rays, you're finding that anywhere between a plus 130 to a plus 135. I was willing to take a plus 115. I do recognize that it's the postseason, but I see a little bit of a higher scoring game. Set this all at 8.3, so I'm going over, and I'm going to go run line of the Tampa Bay Rays. And that'll wrap things up for the Baseball Betting Podcast on this Thursday. Big thanks to our good friend Sharky Waters Nation for joining me in the last segment. And if you do like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, the Baseball Betting Podcast with Greg Peterson, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, whatever you for this podcast, you got one or two ways I'll fire those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at JR_D1. Keep in mind, letters EM. Name does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast. Find that 5-star review. Going to be coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, which means I'm going to be coming at you once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.